times. The journey along the way was very enlightening because I learned that people are your greatest asset. And by cultivating those people, by helping them grow, you can grow your business. And it's been a winning philosophy for my entire 47 years in business.
Yeah, then you have like quite a journey, Don. So, what first sparked your passion for leadership and people development?
I found that while working together and getting people to, if you cast a vision, you create a team, and you build and influence that team to have a productive and rewarding environment, those people will react to you and they will excel and they will go beyond anyone's expectations. And the ability of those people to grow very quickly was something I realized along my journey. I had many opportunities within the factory when I first started my first 10 years at the company. And they always put me in what we would call the hot spots, which really meant it was the most troubled location that nobody can handle. And I think I was like the sacrificial lamb. But fortunately, by working with the people and trying to understand what their needs were and what they needed to get the job done, I was able to be successful each time. And that's what perpetuated my forward progress and my growth.
Yeah, and the title, it's so powerful, like leading people beyond expectation. What does beyond expectation mean to you?
Most of the time, people say, I want to do a good job or I want to be successful. I want to train these people and allow them to use their talents. Everybody has different talents and skills to use their talents to go to higher levels, higher plateaus, and even to out excel beyond their own expectations. Many times I find that once you cultivate someone and help them to succeed, they will rise up. There's an old story that years ago when they did the NASA moon launch, um, back in the 60s, we didn't even have a rocket to get off the ground, but yet John Kennedy casted the vision in 62 that he wanted to get a man to the moon and bring him back. Well, the vision was cast, and then everybody started to work towards that vision, and they found that people were operating at genius level um, expectations and why what they were doing, because they all had one goal and they were working together. And they found once they got to the moon and came back, then everything started to come back down because there was no more goal, nothing more to obtain. And so that was a good example of how working together can get you something that you didn't expect in the past.
Yeah, and you talk about growing companies by growing people. Like, why is that connection so essential?
Because many times companies, there's a saying in business, companies don't uh, plan to fail, they just fail to plan. And when you have good leadership that looks at everybody and says, okay, they all have value. Some will be certain value in certain areas, others will be in other areas. And when you cultivate that value and then they all start working together, the company becomes the benefactor. They become very successful and they innovate, they take things to new levels, and you'd be surprised at how rapidly things can happen.
And how do you define a successful leader today?
Successful leader today is somebody that cultivates, I call authentic leadership. Authentic leadership is someone who leads by example. They want to take their people to higher levels. They're going to do everything in their power to do that. They're going to get them the proper training, the proper tools. They'll even assist them along the way. They'll cultivate them, letting them take more and more responsibility as they go along, so that when they get to a certain point, they can just be able to function pretty much on their own.
And You know that you emphasize like personal and professional growth together. Can you share an example of this from your own journey?
Yes. Years ago, when I worked in the factory, I was given one of those hot spots I like to call, or which was a problem area. They gave me several different departments, and I was young. I was only in my 20s. And all the people in the different departments, they all sort of were, we would say, set in their ways. One group was actually called the rebel rousers. And what I did was try to find out what was stopping them from doing their job. And the guys came and told me, they said, if we rearrange our department, we could probably get 10% more production through. And I said, well, what's your plan? So they drafted up a plan. They came back to me. I said, okay, next Friday afternoon, 2 hours early, we'll start moving everything around. And we're moving things, and the president of the company happened to be coming through. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "My guys said if they rearrange the department, they believe they can get 10% more production." He sort of chuckled and said, "Oh, we'll see," and walked off. Several weeks later, he came back down and asked me. He said, "So, John, what happened? Did you get 10% more production by your new arrangement?" I said, "Actually, no." He said, "Oh, really?" I said, "We got 13%. The guys were a little under." And he just walked off and said, "Good job." And that was all.
Yeah, nice. Like in the book, you also discuss empowering employees.
Yes,
What does
that was
you,
the thing.
yeah, what does true empowerment look like in a day-to-day business?
Well, I was very fortunate that I had a chance meeting with one of the top CEOs in the world. I happened to meet Gordon Bethune, the gentleman who took Continental when they're about to enter their third bankruptcy, um, and turned them around within 18 months, $1 billion. It's one of the top turnarounds in business history. And by accident, we connected, and I became a friend, not knowing who he was, and I used to send him articles about how I would try to cultivate the employees. And he said, Don, you should be teaching this in college. I said, I know, but they don't teach this in college. He goes, I know. I have a degree from Harvard, uh, and they don't teach this in colleges. We both had a chuckle, and later I learned that he was the gentleman who took Continental from worst to first, and he shared his book with me of that title, Worst to First, and how they took Continental from all last metrics in everything. Metrics were on-time baggage, on-time flight schedule, and customer complaints. He said, if I can get my people in the top three of the airlines, I gave them more money each month, a little bonus. He said it took us 3 months. We were number one metric every month for the next 10 years until I retired. So he was able to excel and get those people to grow and work together because of the incentive and how he approached it. He once told me that he wanted to change the rules when he took over. He said, I want everybody to know there's a new man in town. And then he said, I opened the doors and said anybody can come in my office and talk with me. He said, but what really changed is I had the manuals that everybody hated. I had them taken out the parking lot and burned. He said within 24 hours, everybody, all 40,000 employees knew I meant business and things were changing. And my directive was do what's best for the customer and the company until we get you new manuals. He said that was a pivotal change in the company. And so, working with Gordon, I had already had my own um, leadership um, philosophy. And I found out that Gordon and I had a very strong connection in philosophy. So when I finished writing the book, I asked him to read it. And he said, this is really good. This is encapsulates what I did at Continental. He said, I will write the foreword for you. So he wrote the foreword to my book.
Nice. And you mentioned that many leaders focus only on performance numbers. How do you encourage them to also value their people's development?
That's really the most important thing. If you want your company to perform, you have to support your people. So it starts really at the ground level. You have to know who's good at what and who can help each person in the department get to a higher level. I remember myself, I was good at sales, I was good at operations, I was good at things, but negotiations was something I did, but I wasn't really a master at it. So I had a big project in which I wanted to close. I asked one of the other guys who was the negotiating guru in our company. I said, "Hey, Mark, would you come along and help me?" He said, "Sure." He came along, he helped me. Now, between the two of us, he was really good. We got the deal, we closed the deal. Mark got all the praise of him being the best of the best. Our company got the business, and I looked like a superstar because I bowed to somebody that was better in negotiations, and we won.
Yeah, and you know that sometimes not all the people like changes. How do you handle resistance from people who are hesitant to grow or change?
That's a very good point. Change is difficult because status quo is where we live. But the only thing that's constant nowadays is change. You have to prepare your people for change. You have to explain to them, we're going to be moving into a new realm. We're doing something different. Here's why we're doing this, and here's what we're thinking. You can also ask them, as we go along, I want to solicit input from you people because I want to make things improve. Just because we decided that we're going to implement some change doesn't mean it's going to be the best. It's only the best when it works for everybody. So if you gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, give us your input and we can go along the way and streamline our processes, it always seemed to work. And people love to be involved.
And what do you think has been the most challenging part of writing this book?
The one thing that I enjoyed the most is revisiting all the journey, the path and journey along the way, and how each situation was different and how each situation had its own obstacles to overcome. When I was working with in the factory, it was one thing. Then as I worked outside in sales with customers, it was another thing. Then working with our companies internationally, you dealt with different mentalities of Japan, Europe, India, Canada, Korea, China, and each culture is a little different. So you always had to be sharp on what you're doing and how, and sort of present it to the right audience the right way.
Yeah, and your own leadership career that you have a lot of experience. What has been one of your toughest lessons learned?
That when you work together, there's almost nothing you can't accomplish. What I want to do is replicate leaders so that they can shake the very foundations of the industries they serve and take them to new levels unseen by anyone else.
And for the new leaders outside, like just starting now, probably, what's one piece of advice you wish you would had?
I would say be professional, courteous, honest, and always help your people to succeed. It's one thing to lead them, but you can't leave them behind. You have to help them to succeed. And that's what makes a true great leader.
And now for the companies, what advice would you give to a company that wants to shift from a numbers driven focus to a people centered focus?
One of the things that since I retired from the day-to-day corporate world and I did doing writing, I still do business advisory for local manufacturing companies. And what I try to explain to them is they have to have a game plan from the top. What do you want to do? Do you want to be $100 million company? Do you want to be a company that has the ultimate quality, the most profitability? Define yourself and then make a plan, work backwards to get there. That is the one of the paramount things that leaders do. Is they always have a plan and steps of how to get there.
Okay, nice. And what's next for you? Any new books, any new projects coming up?
Um, I want to do some, hopefully get the opportunity to go out and do some speaking on leadership. I still like to train people, and every once in a while, I still get involved in patenting. I patented a couple products and sold them myself internationally when I was along my business career. So that was very exciting to do because I took something from the idea stage all the way through getting awarded a patent. And then I ended up selling my machining patent to an international company in Switzerland that had operations worldwide in 2015. And that was like a dream come true.
Nice. And finally, is there any, if there's one takeaway you want people to remember from your book, what would it be?
It would be always be courteous, kind, and forthright with people and treat them with respect and help them along the way. My grandmother lived to be 101. She taught all the grandkids when you can help people because life is tough. If you can help people along the way, you'll feel better and it'll be better for everyone.
Yeah. And how can our listeners connect with you or learn more about your work?
I'm sorry, what did you say? I missed that.
That how can our listeners connect with you or
Oh,
learn more about your work?
you can Google my name, Don Corsaro. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I have a profile on LinkedIn, and you can in July you'll be able to buy the new book of Leading People Beyond Expectations.
So this is gonna be like second edition of the book, but it's
Yes,
gonna be launched in July, right?
yes,
All platforms.
yes, it's going to be on Barnes and Noble. It'll be across 50 platforms, and we're excited about it because we've had a lot of good reviews. I sent it out to three different colleges in the Cleveland area, universities, the people that teach their master's programs, and the professors came back with this needs to be shared with kids in graduating from high school and coming into college. You need to get them exposed to leadership because people really don't understand how to start the process.
Yeah, and now it's the time where now in the school they can teach about leadership because we need more leaders, like but
Yes,
the good ones.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Don. It has been a pleasure to have you on Authors Radio. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into your work and sharing your passion. And listeners, be sure to check his book. Thank you for turning into Authors Radio, amplifying voices, inspiring the world. And join me next time for another inspiring conversation. In the meantime, happy listening.
Thank you so much.